Can you picture yourself in a room full of crowded people and having the opportunity to speak with each person one-on-one, to share the story behind your art and to share your process? It's something that we can't get on social media, and it's actually precisely why I choose to do art fairs. And I suspect that you're here too because you're interested in them, you just don't know where to start. Hi! I'm Abigail. I'm a traditional artist, and I create delightfully quirky animals to inspire joy and whimsy in the world. I got into the art fair season in 2021, and I had the most amazing mentor who I was able to ask a lot of questions and help kind of guide me along the process, or else I would have had no idea on how to get started. And there was still a lot that I learned along the way, and I'm hoping that I can share some of my wisdom with you today to help you get started. When you're looking at art fairs, events, markets, whatever we want to call them, the first thing is to really consider is, are they even for you? I don't mean like, are you welcome? There's a lot of different markets and fairs, from craft fairs to anime and comic conventions, all the way up to professional art fairs. To determine what is best for you, what I recommend is the most valuable thing you can do right in the beginning is visiting them. Go and see as many markets and art fairs and comic cons that you can before you get started. Use that time to evaluate what is there, what's being sold, how are they marketing their wares, and who is busy. And if you're able to, I would talk to them as well. Ask them questions, ask them how it's going, how long have they done this event, is it going well for them? The worst thing that can happen is that they just say, no, I don't want to talk about this, get lost. But the best thing that can happen is that you can glean some really helpful information from real world experience. So another part on if art markets are for you is a hard truth. It's physically demanding. So are you able to physically do this? Loading your equipment in and out of your vehicle. Do you have a vehicle? Are you able to drive? Getting your equipment into the building or into the outside area, and then being on your feet for usually long hours and often for consecutive days. If you're not able to do it physically, do you have somebody to help you? Or are you able to afford to hire somebody? These are all things to consider. And I guess another hard truth is your art ready for sale? Are you making a product that people want? Are you already making some sales to friends and family and it's starting to gain some traction? And does it feel consistent? One of the biggest mistakes that I made when I was starting out was that I just didn't know my style yet. And I don't know if it was a mistake, but it's something that I did learn that it made my journey a lot longer and tougher. And it took a few years for me to really discover my art style and have consistent artwork. Once I figured that out, I really noticed a difference in the reception of my artwork at the art fairs I was doing. I recommend starting small. Go into low risk entries. These are art fairs, craft fairs. I'm going to use these words interchangeably. These are ones that are really low risk because either they're free or they don't cost much money to get in. Know that when you do these sorts of events, they may not be as organized as some of the more professional ones. The events may not have as much advertising, which means there may not be as much traffic. And the traffic that shows up may not be prepared to buy yet. And that's okay. Use these small events that you're just getting started. They're practice, they're warm up. Figure out your booth setup. Figure out if you're able to do this physically. Don't be discouraged that if you make little to no sales at these sorts of markets, and just try to make your booth fees back so you're not losing money. I really recommend starting small, doing as many as you can, because during this time, you're doing research to find out who is your buyer. Where do you do well at? In a more conservative region? Do you do well in a more liberal region? In a college town versus a city versus more rural settings? These are all really important things to learn, and I can't tell you what's going to work. But what I can tell you is that by doing it, you will learn. And it's going to be a lot of time, and trust me, you're not going to make a lot of money, but working on your mindset and perspective during those events will help get you through. And one of those things is that R&D, that research and development, and I'll talk about a little bit more of it later on in this video as well. Let's talk about your booth. This can be a really expensive upfront cost, and I really apologize for that. I wish I could make it different, but please know that there's lots of resources out there to help you through this process. There's people who are constantly selling their booth setup, selling tables. Check Facebook Marketplace, check the art fair lounges, find the community, ask people when you go and check out the events, hey, where did you get your stuff? Do you know anybody who's selling anything used? Ask around. There are ways to do this a little bit more inexpensively, but it is still an investment. And some of my recommendations here might be a little controversial. Really, it just comes from my experience. Some of these recommendations might work better for one product versus another, one type of art versus another. I do 2D art, so my experience falls in that range. You need to find a way to display your product. Tables are a great way to do that. However, with the caveat that you do not lay everything out flat on the table. This might seem like a good idea that people could walk up to your table and they could look down and browse, but what it does is two things. Is that people can't see it from a distance, so they're less likely to walk up and look. Two, well, I guess maybe three things. It makes it look a little bit unprofessional. It's not usually clean and orderly and easy to see. I did that with my first booth setup, and you can see that it just really didn't show off the artwork. The other thing that it does, and I hate to say this, but it kind of causes like a flea market garage sale vibe, and that's not what you're doing. You're trying to elevate your artwork. My suggestion is, if you do tables, no matter what you do, build up. And a way to do that without spending a fortune would be going to the dollar store, again, checking Facebook Marketplace, looking and seeing what you can find for it, crates, boxes, something that matches your artwork. If you're going to go the table route and have tables in your booth space, which some markets require tables or they provide them, I definitely recommend that everybody should be prepared for setting up with tables. But you're going to need tablecloths. This is a non-negotiable, my friend. You must have tablecloths. And I recommend that you get the tablecloths that go all the way down to the floor. It just looks nice and it's less distracting to your customers when they walk up to your space. And don't allow yourself to hide behind your table. I know I'm so guilty of this too. I get overwhelmed or I just kind of need a break and I kind of want to tuck in behind my table and hide and draw. And that is all well and good, except you're here for a job. And I think that's something that's so important to remember, is that you are the only one representing yourself. You are representing yourself and your artwork. And so when people approach you, make sure you're approachable. And so if you're hiding behind your table drawing, as cool as that is, it doesn't allow you to be approachable and people don't want to disturb you. Speaking of building up with your tables, getting some kind of walls. Now, this is going to be a little bit easier to do in more of like a tent setup, but you can do this in indoor setups as well. One of the best ways to do it for the indoor setups that I have found is the grid walls, which a lot of artists use. I've never used these grid walls before. The feedback that I hear from other artists is that they're heavy, they're a little cumbersome to deal with handling in and out of your vehicle, and they can pinch your little fingers. They can also be a little distracting to those viewing your artwork. Because when your artwork's hanging up on the grid, sometimes that metal on the grid can be a little distracting, and what they're seeing on the other side of the grid can be distracting, and so the artwork's no longer like popping. Something to just consider. But they do make covers for them, and so that's something to look into if your budget allows at a later point. Another way to build up your booth space and create some more walls, you can do this on your table, is using these cubes. I think that they're sold as like storage cubes. You can take them apart. They've got gridded sides or they have solid plastic sides, some that even look like wood, and there's different colored ones. I actually have used these cubes when I've done Comic Cons, and they work out really well because you're given a really limited amount of space. You're only given a 6 or 8 foot table, and so you really need to go vertical with your artwork to show it off. The plastic ones are also really lightweight and they're easy to transport. Shelving. You can also get shelving into your space. I have tried shelving in lots of different fashions. I have found stuff on Facebook Marketplace for my shelving. In the beginning, when I first started selling my artwork and I realized that I needed to start going vertical with my art, I got these garden lattices and I painted them my booth color and I hung them from my tent. Then I used wires and frame hooks on the wires to hang up the artwork. And this did work, and especially for the caliber, let's say, of markets I was doing at that point in time. Again, I was doing those low risk entry ones, free and inexpensive, and just trying to get my artwork out there. What I noticed with this system was that it didn't hold up well in the wind. And again, it did that distracting thing where you could see through them and then the artwork was no longer popping. They also just weren't quite professional enough for the professional art fairs, which was the direction that I was wanting to head into. What I ended up doing is I ended up getting a tent and getting these what's called mesh panels. And these mesh panels go on 3 sides of my tent and they secure with a bar on the bottom to keep them nice and tight, so even on a windy day, my artwork is not jostling around. They have these nice little holes in them that I put these tiny little S-hooks in, and I can hang all my wired artwork on there, and it creates a really professional look. The downside to this is it still is see-through. Having my tent walls on the other side of it really helps prevent that distraction. But in the summertime, when it's 100 degrees, having my walls down makes for a really hot booth. One day, would I like to upgrade to the fancy Pro Panel system? Yes, I would, but I'm not quite there. All right, so we talked about just kind of your booth space in general, but a lot of markets are outside. I would actually say majority of them are outside, at least where I'm located. And if you're doing an outdoor market, some of them require that you have a tent, where some of them say it's optional. I would check some of these out, because what I have found is that artists or vendors who are set up at these markets that don't have tents kind of get lost in the sea of tents. You'll be walking along and you'll see all these tents, and then there's a person sitting at a table and you're kind of like, oh, they're selling gutters. Like, you just don't even register them as somebody that is available for you to shop at. And I think it's because they don't have the boundaries of the tent creating an actual like shop space for you to walk into. Tents can be expensive. Pop-up tents are perfectly fine. Get something from Costco or Meijer or again, Facebook Marketplace. But the most important thing is have weights for your tents. It takes just one breeze to upend everything and cause all kinds of problems. So please put weights on your tent. All right, we've talked about the different types of markets, and you're just gonna try a lot of different ones out and find out what works for you. We also talked about your booth space, getting tables, getting some vertical displays set up. All of that's gonna be really helpful in presenting your artwork. And we also talked about the tent. I really recommend a tent. Do not skimp on the weights. But there's something that you need in all of this that we haven't touched base on, and this is also a very personal thing, but it's payments. How do you want to collect payments? I know a lot of people choose to use Square because from my understanding, Square is free and you just pay the transaction fees. You could set up a Venmo or Cash App. We all know how to pay each other now. What I do recommend is that make sure you have a separate business account. This is not my whole business recommendations here. We're gonna assume you've done everything. You've got an LLC or sole prop or whatever you need to do. You have your separate business account. Set up your Cash App, set up your Venmo, whatever you need to do to get payments. And I use Shopify because it's all set up through my website. And that way I'm able to track my inventory. Speaking of tracking inventory, I highly recommend that you track your inventory, or at least track what sells. I recommend keeping a log or a journal for each event and what sold well and what didn't sell well. This type of reporting will allow you to make informed business decisions in the future. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in my bonus tips, which is not some helpful tips. Manage your mindset. I don't know if I can emphasize this enough. Your mindset at these markets is huge. People, we are intuitive and we pick up on this. And if you're down and you're grumpy and you're angry even, they're gonna pick up on that. I think they're gonna be less likely to buy from you. I talk about mindset a lot in my Building an Art Career Without Burnout series. And I discuss that leading with mission and making choices out of hope instead of fear have been critical in my journey as a full-time artist. So your mindset is really powerful, and I encourage you to take some time to evaluate beforehand. Why are you doing this? What is your mission? What would make the day a successful day, non-monetary related? You made a new contact. You met a new artist peer that you are getting tips with, or you love their art. What are some sorts of things that can make the day successful to you that are not related to your financial gains? Use your time at events as R&D, your research and development. Keep that log journal and track what year it is and how many sales you made and how much money you made and how much the booth fee was and any feedback. Was it hot? Was it cold? Was the weather bad? Was there nobody there? Did you notice no advertising? There's so many things that you can document which will allow you to make those informed decisions from year to year. I use a Notion database to track all of mine, and that's what I just find works for me. So everything's in one place and I can search it easily and pull up last year's metrics. Use this time to network. I mentioned it before, but finding other peers that are in the same boat as you that you can bounce ideas off of or get helpful advice from, or just have a friend. There's so much value in that. So use the time. If it's boring and there's not a soul in sight, talk to the other artists, talk to the other vendors, get to know them, find out where they live, what do they do, what other events have they done, how long have they been doing this for, do they have any advice for you, how would they improve your booth? Maybe they have a good booth and you want to ask for feedback. One of my biggest things has always been, what's the worst that can happen? They're going to tell me no? All right, then ask. Because what you stand to gain is so grand just by talking to people and being curious. And some extra little bonus tips Sleep well the night before if you can. Get rest and dress for the job. You are the one who's representing you and your art. Treat it with the professionalism that it deserves, and other people will as well. Keep that journal and pack some food. Getting away from your booth sometimes can be really challenging if it's busy. Having some healthy snacks with you so you can focus on sharing your artwork with people instead of standing in a food truck line. I highly recommend it. Pack food, pack water, pack healthy stuff. I think that's all I have. I could really talk about this forever, which is why I think I'm going to make this into a little bit of a mini series for you as well. I also think that there's so much more that we can talk about on this topic, so please let me know in the comments if there's anything that I didn't cover today that you would like to learn more about. As always, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of this. I really hope that you found this helpful and you feel encouraged and more prepared moving forward in your art journey. Thank you.